what kind of, not just man Patroclus is, but what kind of fighter he is. And like, how does he behave on the battlefield? Hopefully it comes to no shock that he's kind of an absolute beast.
Hello, and welcome to WINNOW, a couple's close reading of the Iliad and the Odyssey. I'm Owen Gemmer.
I'm Isabella Gemmer. We are married, and we love to talk about books together.
In this podcast, we are working our way through Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey, and this book will cover the Iliad Book 16.
Yes, I'm very happy to be back doing Iliad stuff. Last week with our Frankenstein double hitter bonus episodes, that was a lot. You know, the thing that I do always love about book to movie film adaptations is that, like, for at least a week on TikTok, like, people actually act excited about literature again. It's really great to see people just, like, have opinions about literature. I don't know. For me, it's, like, very important, like, as a society, that we still hold literature to actually be important. So the fact that people even have opinions is, like, very exciting to me. But speaking about having opinions and being excited, this book of the Iliad, like, this is when the action, like, picks up again.
Yeah.
We've had, like, since, like, you know, book 10 was great, a lot of action, book 10. Since then, it's kind of like a lull in the middle. Mm-hmm. But we're getting back to it. I mean, it's not a spoiler to say that this book is all about Patroclus dying and how that comes about. Like, what machinations, you know, come together to make that happen. And then obviously the rest of the book is basically like, what's the fallout of this happening? Mm-hmm.
So we'll begin with our summaries, as we often do. I am writing little short poems to summarize each book, and Bella is doing some other writing activity to summarize with more detail. Do you want to start, or do you want me to?
How about you start?
Okay. I wrote a limerick, and I played with the classic There Once Was a Man from Nantucket. That is kind of the archetypical limerick that most people know, because that one is all about one man, and I think this book is all about one man as well. Yeah. And it also offers some fun challenges for interesting rhymes. Mm-hmm. There once was a Greek named Patroclus. He saw that his army's death was so close. So he dressed as Achilles and went on a kill spree, but Hector fights him and bids him adios. I discovered that Achilles and a kill spree is kind of cool that you can do that.
Yeah, like a slant rhyme.
Yeah.
That's not like really a rhyme, but yeah.
Well, but like, I guess it reveals that within the name Achilles is the syllable kill.
Yeah, which obviously there's no like etymological reason why that is. That's just like kind of a cool coincidence.
Yeah.
Of like sounds and language. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, I just wrote a quick summary. There's no special gimmick to my summary. We got to get to it. We got to get right to the meat.
Okay.
I'm very excited. I got my afternoon coffee right here. We're getting to the point this episode. Okay. Patroclus wants to help the Greeks fight. Achilles lets him, but tells him not to do anything more than protect the ships. Patroclus leads a band of Myrmidons into battle while wearing Achilles' armor. Patroclus attacks and kills many Trojans. Patroclus is a beast. Zeus hesitates to let Patroclus kill his son Sarpedon, but allows it because death in battle is glorious. Sarpedon's friend Glaucus prays to Apollo for aid. Patroclus is inspired by Zeus to push the Trojans back to their city. Apollo essentially makes the armor fall off of Patroclus, leaving him vulnerable in the middle of the battlefield. He gets stabbed by Euphorbus and retreats, but Hector finishes him off. Patroclus says some ominous words to Hector that he will die soon at Achilles' hands. He dies.
Excellent.
Yes.
I noticed you pronounced his name like 4 different ways.
Yeah.
Should we settle on something for the sake of this, or are we just going to go wild?
I think I can't control it. It's actually what I've learned. I can't control if I say Patroclus or Patroclus or Patrocles.
Yeah, because you see it spelled different ways with an OS or an ES at the end, and then, where you put the emphasis. I'm sure there is a more standard way, but it's kind of fun to just go wild with it. I messed with it as well for rhyming, things like that.
Yeah, who cares? Telemachus, Potato. We'll just go with whatever. So this book starts with Patroclus and Achilles. They're kind of standing, looking out over, the skirmish that's happening in the camp. Because the Trojans are like basically about to light one of the Greek ships on fire. And Patroclus is like crying because he's like so heartbroken to see all these men dying kind of needlessly.
And then Achilles calls him a little girl, basically.
Yeah, Achilles is like, why are you crying? And then he
actually compares him to like a little girl who's like clinging at her mother's dress.
Yeah. I have it right here.
Okay, sure.
Why have you started crying now, Patroclus? Just like a silly little girl who runs beside her mother begging, pick me up, and tugs her dress and gets under her feet. Patroclus, you are like that little girl with these thick tears of yours. Do you have something to tell the Myrmidons or me? Yeah.
Emily Wilson translates with spite. I like it.
When a character is like trying to put another character down, like it hits usually. Yeah. And Achilles is like can't fathom why Patroclus could hardly be sad at all. He's like, I haven't heard any news that my father or anyone important back home has died.
Yeah.
He's like so kind of blind to the death around them. Mm-hmm. He's like, none of my people are really dead, just these guys. But then, Patroclus is like, no, I'm sad because all of our best fighters are injured and things are really, really bad. And then he is the one, he asks what Nestor suggested in an earlier book. Once again, it all comes back to Nestor. He asks Achilles if he can put on his armor and go into battle and do something to help.
I think there's two parts for us to talk about here, right? There's the plan itself. Like, why this plan? Is this a good plan? Is it going to be effective? And then also, why does Achilles ultimately agree to it? Because he does. And so, let's talk about both halves of it. Because I think on the one hand, it seems like a smart plan. If you're not going to fight Achilles, at least don't make all of us stop fighting with you. Like, you can sort of be a coward or whatever you want to do, but all of your other men, like, we want to fight. We want to help our comrades. And so don't drag us down. Mm-hmm. So I think that at least desire from Patroclus is admirable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if your instinct tells you to avoid some prophecy, and if your goddess mother has shared some news of this with you from Zeus, then send me out there right away. Send with me a band of Myrmidons, and let me be the light to save the Greeks.
Yeah, so he's basically saying, like, okay, I can't convince you to change your mind, but you don't have to drag us down with you.
Yeah.
Which, is I think a totally fair and reasonable thing. And I think, the fact that Achilles has this whole time been preventing the rest of his men from fighting is, I think, a step too far, even from his initial sort of obstinance that he had at the beginning, that I think both of us were initially at least okay with him, like, saying, I'm not going to fight for you, Agamemnon. But even the fact that...
But now it's taken way too far.
Right. Not just in terms of the length of time, but also the fact that, this whole time he's also prevented all of his other men from fighting. Like, well, what do they have to do with it? Yeah.
Yeah. Because, like, it's kind of like if I was just one of the Myrmidon dudes, like, it would be kind of emasculating, I feel like.
Right.
To, like, all the guys are dying in combat. And that's, like, we'll get to the Sarpedon bit in a second, but dying in combat is, like, that wins out over basically all other options.
Right.
And they're, like, not being allowed to have that chance even.
Right.
So, like, they're probably not that happy with what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the second part of that then is and let me put on your armor. Because this is an interesting, like, doppelganger armor as identity kind of thing, right? Of like, from a distance, many of the Trojans will believe that it is you who fights.
Yeah.
And that will scare them. Mm-hmm. And so there will be a sort of psychological victory that we will sort of have as well.
Yeah.
You're the one who's kind of had lots of armor as identity thoughts. So do you want to...
What I'll say so far is that it's interesting because all the instances of armor that we've gotten so far, so armor is... If you kill someone on the other side, you get to strip that dude's armor and take it as your own. So in killing someone, like you get to, it's like a weird identity thing. Like you get to subsume their identity. You take it from them as they die, but you also assume it in some ways. And you sort of, the people you kill, you carry with you in battle in a strange sense, maybe in a good way and maybe in a bad way. And maybe it's both. But then we also get instances like, it was Diomedes and Glaucus who exchange armor as a sign of, manly friendship. And so this is an instance where there's no exchange. Achilles kind of just lets Patroclus take and wear his armor.
Right. So it's not a stripping in like a theft-like way, but it's also not this like mutual exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Achilles does extend in this moment. He does extend to Patroclus like a lot of trust, I think, and like he wouldn't let Patroclus wear his armor into battle if he thought that Patroclus was gonna like be weak or like not like Patroclus is representing Achilles in this moment,
Right.
And so like he's gonna bring it,
Right.
like he's really gonna bring his whole self to the battle in this way.
Right. Presumably, like if earlier Odysseus had come and asked, like, "Hey, can I wear your armor?" for the same reasons, he probably would have said no. But like, so there is something special about Patroclus here that like grants him this privilege of wearing his armor and assuming at least some of his identity.
Yeah. At least in the Emily Wilson translation, all throughout this book, Patroclus has the epithet comrade of Achilles. Yeah, so a lot of the times we're just reminded over and over in this book, Patroclus, comrade of Achilles. Last episode about book 15, we talked a lot about the word comrade, what it is in the Greek, and how it has like a very strong sense. It means something very strong, but it's not necessarily just a friendship.
Right. Or love. There might be, some sort of love as a part of it, but it's not.
Yeah. It seems to go beyond just like feelings, and it has a very concrete understanding. It's like these people have a very specific relationship, and that is of comradeship. Like, and it's not necessarily just like a thing that they feel, I love you, like, love being something that can, come and go in strength, but it's this thing that like is always going to exist between them.
Yeah. It's almost involuntary.
Yeah. It's almost like
in
they
the same
can't
way,
pull out of it even.
Right.
Like they are comrades no matter what they do.
Right. In the same way. And I think that's where even in the modern world we get like brother in arms, right? Like brother is a term where like we don't choose our brothers. And like in the same way in the army, like you don't choose like which battalion you're in, or I don't know how the terminology works, but that it's something that's sort of like thrust upon you by outside forces, but then that you have to sort of like create as a bond and hold true to, right? That isn't fickle because friends like, oh, I don't like this person anymore. So
like friendships can be over, but you have to be comrades until you die.
Right.
It's like that kind of thing.
Just like you have to be brothers until one of you die or whatever.
Yeah. So Achilles' response to Patroclus, he tells him that he can go, he can take his armor, but he kind of puts some barriers on it. Do not let their blazing fire ignite the fleet and steal our precious chance of going home again. That's basically what he's allowed to do.
Right. Because
protect the ships.
This is all spurred on by the fact that like Hector literally, like there's one ship that's like already on fire. Like they are there at the ships. And so the immediate danger is like they're going to burn down our whole fleet.
Yeah. It's on the following page is when the first ship gets lit on fire. Yeah. And then Achilles goes on, kind of tells Patroclus, this is what you should not do. Then you will win great glory and respect for me from all the Greeks, and they will send the lovely woman to a different home and give me splendid gifts. But once you have driven the Trojans back from the ships, come back. If Zeus, the spouse of Hera, god of thunder, gives you the chance to win triumphant glory, do not attempt to fight the warlike Trojans without me, or you will reduce my status. Do not take joy in violence and war and killing the Trojans. Do not lead the men to Troy, or one of the immortal gods may come from Mount Olympus to attack you.
Yeah.
So he is a little bit concerned with Patroclus' safety,
But not really.
Not really.
He could have been so much more strong, right? Like you could have the same conclusion of like fight them off to chase them away from the ships, but don't go any further, right? Like that is an understandable thing for Achilles to say. And it could be because I care for you. I don't want you to like, that's a risky thing for you to do. It could go poorly. That's a small part of it. It could be a much bigger part, but instead it's a much more selfish.
It's very much, do not attempt to fight the warlike Trojans without me, or you will reduce my status.
Right.
So,
like if we're going to sack Troy and like tear down the walls, I want to be a part of it. And if you're wearing my armor when that happens, that's bad for me. I think the thing I take away from this is like, we've seen Achilles be selfish this whole time, pretty much. And there might be an extent to which his selfishness is somewhat justified, especially early on. Again, that like he was wronged, I think, by Agamemnon.
Yeah.
And I think there is a little bit of righteousness in his indignation that like, I'm not going to fight for you when you don't respect me. But in this moment, right, I think we see the selfishness probably for what it is, that it is like an egotistical, pure desire for glory, for personal glory above all else.
Well, I think it definitely is. I think you're definitely right. He does at the end of his speech, he does say, if only the whole multitude of Trojans would die and all the Greeks. So if everybody would just die, we alone, the two of us, survived the devastation, so we alone together could destroy the sacred town of Troy. Recently, we were talking with a friend who brought up the brotherly love, like the really intense brotherly love that exists in Superbad, the movie. And that level of like, if it was only just us two bros and like, it was just us and we could just do whatever we wanted together, that's like kind of the epitome of like manly friendship, I feel like in some ways, illustrated in that, like, if it was just us, wouldn't that be so great? And we could just go and sack the town.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. So Patroclus puts on the armor. The rest of the Myrmidons sort of array themselves in battle. Achilles is there sort of taking charge, right? Achilles appoints like captains over different sort of sections of the Myrmidons and is kind of out front, like marshaling his troops in a way that is somewhat surprising, at least to me.
He's like weirdly active and like he gets everyone kind of like ready to go and then he just like sends them out.
Right.
Yeah.
But then they go out and they are quite successful. We get lots more battle scenes, both of Patroclus doing stuff, but then also many of the other Myrmidons who have been sitting there. And I think it's also, I did the math, there's like 2,000 of them.
Yeah.
It's like, it's pretty clear. Like there's like, a lot of Myrmidons who've been sitting there the whole time. That again puts into perspective, like all these guys have just been like this whole book, just like chilling by their ship.
Yeah. A bunch of dudes. Yeah. Not just like 12 guys sitting around a campfire.
Right.
Like a good portion of the whole camp is just like not doing anything.
Yeah.
There's a really great Homeric simile about like the Myrmidons getting roused.
Yeah, the bloody, this one's good.
As wolves who crave raw meat, with boundless courage surging in their hearts, rip up a massive antlered stag and eat him. The face of every wolf is red with blood. The pack runs down together to the spring. Their slim tongues lap black water, and its surface is smeared with blood. They belch from all the flesh. Their spirits in their chests are still undaunted, their bellies full to bursting. Like these wolves, the leaders of the Myrmidons surrounded the loyal follower of swift Achilles.
Yeah, it's good.
It's really good. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like the vibe of this book, and the Myrmidons like joining the fight, and Patroclus in Achilles' armor leading them. And so we get to kind of see what kind of, not just man Patroclus is, but what kind of fighter he is. And like, how does he behave on the battlefield? And hopefully it comes to no shock that he's kind of an absolute beast. I think that there's some modern interpretations of Patroclus that paints him a little bit like a twink. Maybe he's like the skinny, more kind of, bashful, like side wingman to Achilles.
Right.
Like Achilles is like the guy, and then Patroclus is like, I don't know, the Smee to Captain Hook kind of.
Yeah.
Like kind of bumbly and But Patroclus is like he just totally like killing people left and right. There's one part where he picks up a piece of quartz rock and just like pew, throws it through the crowd, and like the rock like smashes this dude's like front brow in. Like he's doing stuff.
Yeah, and so at least to that extent, the plan works flawlessly because it is both the physical domination of just like the extra troops who are very effective at what they're doing, and there is the psychological that like at first the Trojans are afraid that Achilles has joined, and so there is that element, especially at the beginning, and so the part that Achilles had wanted of chase the men away from the ships happens pretty quickly. That the Greeks get the upper hand pretty quickly, and are sort of, being able to push the Trojans away from the ships. But then it keeps going. And we'll talk about that as it goes. But the actual plan itself to put Patroclus in the armor and get the Trojans away from the ships is incredibly effective.
One Patroclus moment that I wanted to talk about was he kills someone whose name I am forgetting. It probably doesn't matter too much. He kills this one dude.
This one dude's Wikipedia page is just was killed by Patroclus, and that's it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's when he throws the glittering stone of quartz. He throws this piece of quartz like whew, across. The sharp stone did not miss. It struck the driver, Cebriones is how I've been saying it. Yeah. The bastard son of Priam. So one of the Trojans, one of the bastard sons of Priam. It crushes his brow, broke his skull, his eyes fell to the dusty ground before his feet. So this guy was like riding a chariot, and then he plunged out of the chariot like a diver.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So he basically because he just got dead. He like flips out of the chariot basically. And then this is what Patroclus says to mock him. My goodness, you are quite the gymnast. What a fine somersault. If he were sailing the fish-filled sea, I think this man would leap out of the boat, however bad the weather, and catch sea squirts to feed a multitude. Even on dry ground, he can tumble nimbly out of his chariot. Among the Trojans, there certainly must be some acrobats. That's so harsh.
Yeah.
Like he's again, this is what Achilles did say, do not do not take joy in war. Patroclus here, this is towards the end, when his confidence is rising and rising, and he's starting to enjoy the battle, potentially too much.
Yeah.
Which is in contrast to a passage that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, because at a different moment, there was a different Greek who had some very harsh words and taunts for an opponent, and Patroclus reprimanded him for pausing from the fight and taunting.
You are a warrior, so you know better. The Trojans will not leave the corpse alone, no matter what you say against them, brother. Words are for council meetings. War needs hands. There is no time to talk. We need to fight.
This, I think, is interesting to look at those entire last two lines sort of together in the Greek. So we're going to do a little kind of an extended Greek time that also has some poetic terminology in it.
Yes.
So we'll have it up on screen. I'm not going to translate literally every word, but so 2 lines, each line has 2 clauses. And so the first clause of the first line is basically the end of war is in hands. And one interesting vocabulary in here, the word that's translated as end is telos, which if you're familiar with kind of any Greek philosophy is a major part of both Aristotelian and Platonic philosophy. It's sort of like the end to which all things strive, the sort of final goal. And so the final goal of war exists in our hands, basically. Again, the purpose of war is in our hands, not in speak, because he's contrasting here talking about things from doing things. Essentially, it's basically words versus actions. And so in order to accomplish the goal of war, you have to use your hands for things. You have to kill people.
Gotcha.
So the sort of final point of war is enacted by our hands. This is in contrast to the second clause where it's that of words is in council, right? words have use, but that is counsel and like talking about things. But that's not the final end goal. That's like a medium sort of intermediary to get us there.
Gotcha.
So we have this contrast between like our hands are good for war stuff and words are just good for counsel. And so then he changes the tone now in the second stanza to then like, we need not right now gather up stories or speeches, but rather we need to fight. And so what I want to say about the entire structure of this, this is a poetic device referred to as chiasmus, because chi is the Greek letter that is an X. And so if you look at this, there's a kind of X structure where in the first line, we have the first clause being about the sort of hands and the war stuff. And then the second clause is about sort of speaking. Then in the second line, it's reversed. The first clause is about speaking. And then the second clause is about war. And so if you connect the two speaking parts and the two war parts, you get this X structure. So it's like A, B, B, A. Yeah. And that's a device often used in rhetoric and in poetry and things like this, just to sort of create repetition without being just a pure repetitive A, B kind of thing. One small thing, I noticed that the Emily Wilson translation actually doesn't translate the chiastic structure. She translates, I think, all of the phrases pretty accurately, but she switches the order of them.
Yeah.
So it is just, she translates it with a more straight up like A, B repetition.
Yeah,
whereas the Greek is the chiastic A, B, A.
Yeah. Like words are for council meetings. War needs hands. There is no time to talk. We need to fight.
Yeah.
So she keeps it the same instead of like crisscrossing them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did notice that.
And again, like, I'm not to say this to like, she's an awful translator, because oftentimes, right, like she might have done that simply for the meter of the line that like.
Yeah, because she's trying to maintain iambic pentameter. Maybe she was like, this will work better for that, for the meter.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Could be.
A
couple other just fun notes from this. So the word in the second stanza, muthon, that is translated as like speeches or stories or things like that. That is where we get our word myth from. So muthos. Mythos is like storytelling, basically.
Yeah.
And so he's basically saying, it's not time for stories. Who cares about that stuff? Mm-hmm. It's time for action. And then this, I have no interpretive framework, but this is just another fun fact. The verb that's translated like to gather up, ophalein, is the same word whose noun form, if you're familiar with the Lord's Prayer, that gets translated as forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. It's the noun form of that gathering up that's used in the Lord's Prayer. Mm-hmm. So that was just like, I was looking at it in the Greek and I was like, I feel like I've seen that word before somewhere. And then it like clicked. Because obviously this is very different from the Lord's Prayer. So it didn't immediately connect in my mind. Debts
being this thing that like piles up in a sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of this is to say right here, we have, and maybe this is a contrast for the entire book, right? Like some things happen by means of speeches and sort of political combat, and other things happen by means of war. Yeah. And fighting and death and things like that. And in many ways, those are the two ways that action happens in the Iliad. And Patroclus is like, right now we are in action, war, hands, killing time, not in speech, counsel, storytelling time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We get a little bit of hypocrisy here from Patroclus because he says this here and then as
in a couple pages
he does there's some acrobats among the Trojans taunt.
So he's got fancy words, even though he said we should stop doing fancy words.
Yeah. But one of the people that he does kill is Sarpedon, who we've seen has probably the second most noted Trojan, at least in terms of like screen time.
Yeah,
Paris is probably slightly more kind of like famous, but
Paris may be more like important to the plot, maybe. But Sarpedon is like, it's like Hector and then Sarpedon on the Trojan side. Big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and we know from earlier he is one of Zeus's children, and we know also in the previous book Zeus sort of foreshadowed and foretold when he was saying this is how it's all going to happen. He was explaining his plan to Hera. He had even said like my son Sarpedon will die in this kind of thing. But when Sarpedon is basically like bloodied and injured, Zeus has a moment of doubt. He briefly considers intervening and like whisking his son away before he can die to protect him, like some of the gods have done before with Aeneas and with Paris.
Zeus says to Hera, I am of two minds, wondering if I ought to lift him up alive and take him from the battlefield, the source of tears, and carry him away and set him in the fertile land of Lycia, or kill him now beneath Patroclus' hands.
Zeus is conflicted. He knows his son is destined to die in this moment, but he is considering intervening anyway. So it's sort of his will versus the will of the fates. And one would think that the fates' fate is fate. But Zeus here is basically admitting like, yeah, no, I could overrule fate. So if he can, then what's the whole point of fate? Does it even matter? like, oh, okay, yeah, we have this whole thing called fate, but also Zeus can just be like, yeah, no, actually fate, that's wrong. I'm going to go do something different.
I understand your issue. I understand your angst.
So to me, what this reveals is that the fates are just on the same level as the gods. Like they have their will for things and the gods have their will and they're sort of off at intention. It's not like fate is the kind of like the highest thing that everybody is subservient to, because clearly Zeus thinks that he can just go in and be like, yeah, no, fates, you guys are wrong. I'm going to do this now.
To add fuel to your fire, I'll also point out that in this book, Zeus has another moment. It's much smaller, but he has another moment where he is, Patroclus has achieved the goal of pushing the Trojans back from the ships. That's also the moment Achilles told Patroclus, like, once you push them back, turn around and come back here. Zeus has a moment where he looks down at Patroclus and he says, oh, I could do two things here. I could either have Patroclus has to die either way. And Zeus acknowledges that. And Zeus wants that to happen. He's very set on that. He's like, either I can have Patroclus die now, or I can, ignite him with vigor and let him, push on
all the way to the walls.
All the way to the walls of Troy.
And then die at the walls.
And die at the walls of Troy. Even Zeus in that moment was like, I don't know how I want to go about this. Do I want him to die right here? Or do I want to give him a lot of his own glory first and then kill him off?
So it's another, you had already sort of talked last book about Hector kind of being a pawn and not realizing it. And here that role is kind of switched. Well, I think Hector is still a pawn. That doesn't mean Hector's not. But we also now see Patroclus being kind of just a pawn to move around. And like all of this is to accomplish the goal of bringing glory to Achilles.
Yeah. It is like an ironic tragedy for Achilles, and I wonder, as we read the next couple books, when does Achilles realize that him asking Thetis to ask Zeus for a favor so that he can have more glory in the end, when does he realize that that desire of his ultimately trickles down into, Zeus making sure Patroclus dies?
Yeah.
I think we know that these events are connected from our point of view.
Right.
But when Achilles realizes that, does that really inform like his grief?
Yeah.
That moment when he realizes that like he has brought about the death of his own comrade.
Right.
Yeah,
but we'll save that because that's coming. Let's get back to the Sarpedon moment, because Zeus has this like question and he's sitting with Hera, and Hera basically is like, that's a dumb idea, because if you do that, look how many other gods have their demigod children fighting, then everybody's just going to want to step in and rescue their kids. So like, don't set a bad example, Zeus. And Zeus is like, okay, fine. Hera sort of tells him that like, oh, you can send Sleep and Death to like take his body away so that they don't desecrate his body, so that his family can like give him a nice burial. And that's a compromise. And Zeus is like, okay, fine.
I think he's also ultimately swayed by the fact that letting his son die in battle is better than him getting to continue living a normal life.
Because when Paris got whisked out of the battle instead of dying, everybody was like, you coward.
Exactly. And so like, that's kind of I think, not what Zeus wants for
Yeah.
his
But
kid.
I was a little bit flippant. He doesn't actually just be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. He actually is very distraught about this. He's so distraught about his son's death that he actually cries tears of blood and makes it rain blood on the battlefield.
Yeah. He rained down drops of blood to earth to glorify his son the son he loved, Sarpedon, who would be killed upon the fertile field of Troy.
So that's cool.
That's cool. So that's cool.
Should we get back to Patroclus? That was a brief interlude to talk about Sarpedon, but
Yes.
I do feel like we need to give him his due honor because, yeah, like besides Hector, he has been one of he's kind of the first like real main character that has died in some ways.
In a bit, yeah. I
mean, in a bit or ever. That's like
remember.
a main character who has had multiple speaking lines.
Yeah.
From either side. I think actually he is the first.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
That's not just kind of a random nobody.
Mm-hmm. Back to Patroclus. There's a couple things I did want to point out as food for thought. One of which is throughout this book, book 16, there is a lot of use of second person.
Yes, I noticed that too.
So the narrator of the story using second person to address Patroclus. We've mentioned that, so like previously up to this point, we've mentioned the times when second person has been used, and it's normally been in reference to Menelaus. And it's been a few times here and there, but throughout this book, as I was reading it, I was like, I started circling all the you, like all the uses of you in reference to Patroclus. And I was like, wow, this is like, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so my question is kind of, does that have some sort of effect on the tone of the story and of this book? Like, does it potentially make it feel more like ominous or something?
I think it's less ominous for the future and more like telling the reader that like this is the moment we've been building towards in many ways, that like in some ways, Patroclus, this has all been about you, and like you are the one who now is like culminating. I read it as like the first half is now over and you have sort of ushered in the end of the war by this. And so it is kind of like this honor mourning. Like I read them often as like mournful.
Yeah.
That like you had to die in order for the rest of this to come to fruition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just an example. Patroclus, when the gods began to call you to death, whom did you kill? Whom first, whom last? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like a point. It's like someone standing on the battlefield pointing.
Yeah.
Like you.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to point out before we get to like Patroclus's death scene. Very excited to get there, but right before we get there, there is a little interesting thing done with the horses that Patroclus takes into battle. So as he's like putting on the armor, he like has some guys helping him. They like ready his chariot, and he gets 3 horses attached to his chariot situation. He gets 2 immortal horses and 1 mortal horse. Their names are quite, at least the names how they're translated are quite interesting.
Yeah, the horses have lore to them.
The horses have lore. Dapple and Bay. Those are their names. That's like awesome. Dapple and Bay.
Oh, she like translates the Greek. Mine all just use the Greek word as a name.
Oh,
that's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dapple and Bay, who flew as fast as breezes. Zephyr, the west wind, fathered them. Their mother, Brightfoot the harpy, birthed them in the meadow where she was grazing by the streams of ocean. Next to them, as a trace horse, he attached marvelous Jumper, whom Achilles took when he destroyed the town of Etion. Mortal, he ran beside immortal horses. So the one horse that is mortal, Jumper. Mortal, he ran beside immortal horses. That line really struck me. It's like quite early in the book. You've got these 2 immortal horses and this 1 mortal one. And then later on, Jumper, the mortal horse, is wounded and dies in the skirmish and in the battle. And he has to be, because he's a dead body now, he has to be cut from the 2 immortal horses are still alive.
So he doesn't drag him down.
So like they can literally keep moving forward. One of the Greeks has to, cut the ties between all the horses so that they can leave him behind. I can't help but see that as like a mirror for what's kind of going on with Patroclus being like, he's just a mortal guy. Mm-hmm. You know, he's a great fighter, as this book points out, but he's still just like mortal. Mm-hmm. And Achilles, as we have been reminded again and again, is, you know, he's not 100% immortal.
But he's a demigod, yeah.
But he's a demigod. So he is set apart from Patroclus in this very particular way. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I just thought that it was like it's like a visual representation kind of what's going on here. Like Patroclus, when he dies, he is, in a sense, he's like he has to be cut free from the rest of the Greeks so that like then with his death kind of being this like mortal sacrifice, then they are able to carry on and keep fighting. Yeah. Like it's this, like it's...
I like that a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, so the Patroclus death scene.
Which I will note comes after like a massive amount of killing. I think there are times of numbers where there's just like 2 lines where it's like, and then he went and killed 3 people 9 times or something like that. Like there's a couple moments where it like kind of is just like, yeah, and he killed like a dozen people.
So the way that Patroclus dies is like totally unfair if you think about it. So like basically he's in the battle, he's doing battle stuff, and Apollo is like this like wispy little, that's how I envisioned him.
Oh really? I took it as like Apollo's in like full on like warrior avatar form.
Oh,
and
it's just, he looks like a man
on the field and fighting. Yeah. I think at the beginning.
Well, no, so Apollo does come down at one point in the form of someone else, one of the Trojans, and talks to one of the Trojans. But so in this scene, though, the human failed to see the eerie god cloaked in a thick mist. Apollo stood behind Patroclus with one flat palm. He patted his back and sturdy shoulders, so his eyes swiveled. Apollo nudged his helmet off. It clattered underneath the horse's hooves. The crest of horsehair sprouting from its tip was soiled with blood and dust. Before this moment, it was against the norms of proper custom for any dust to smirch that horse-plumed helmet, when it protected the fine head and temples of Lord Achilles. But now Zeus let Hector wear his helmet on his head, which brought his own destruction closer to him. Apollo, son of Zeus, unclipped his breastplate. Confusion seized his mind. His splendid body undone, he stood, stock still in bafflement. To sum that up, Patroclus is doing battle, and Apollo is like, woo, comes by, and is like, boop, helmet off. He's like, boop, oh look, you're naked now. Like, just like, kind of like, just like, and his armor, like the protection is like falling off of him. Mm-hmm. And it's like literally his protection because it's his armor.
And then also the metaphorical, like you are Achilles no more. Like you are just yourself.
Like the metaphorical, like you're not protected by Achilles's reputation, or his, like the things that we associate with Achilles, like you're no longer associated with those things. Like you stand here on your own, kind of. But totally unfair. Like totally just a god 100% interfering. Yeah. You know? It's not like Patroclus slips up in fighting and, you know, someone like bests him. It's like suddenly he's just not wearing armor.
After the armor comes off, then somebody else comes up and like stabs him. Mm-hmm. And so he doesn't die in this moment, but he's again like severely injured.
He's like trying to get away.
Right. And then Hector comes up and basically then kills Patroclus and then taunts him.
Yeah. He's like, that's my, if I ever become like a sound effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Foley artist.
A Foley artist. Yeah. That's me. That's the sound of a spear going in the chest. Yeah. So I imagine Patroclus laying on the ground, spear, and like Hector's standing over him, right, with his like foot on his chest. And this is what he says. He says, Patroclus, I suppose you thought you would destroy my city and enslave the women of Troy and rob them of their day of freedom and take them in your ships to your homeland. Fool. Blah, 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 blah. Basically, he says, you are a weakling and your great Achilles did you no good at all. He stayed behind. I bet he told you when you left for battle, Patroclus, do not drive your chariot back here to the hollow ships until you slice right through the body tunic to the chest of murderous Hector. So he spoke, I think, and you, poor fool, attempted to obey him.
That's really fascinating because that's actually completely inaccurate.
Yes.
It's actually the exact opposite that Achilles told him. Don't chase after Hector. Don't try and kill them and Zach.
Yeah. I find it's like, it's just interesting. It's just an interesting moment. Hector being like, I know what Achilles said, you know, but in fact we know that he is like saying the exact opposite of what Achilles said.
And it's actually Patroclus's disobedience that might be fueled on and egged on by Zeus that has led him to this point against Achilles' will.
Yeah. And then Patroclus kind of with his dying breath.
Yeah. You know, that's how you know he's a main character is when he gets stabbed, he gets to say some stuff. Whereas everybody else, when they get stabbed, they die immediately.
Yeah. Or when lesser characters die, the main characters get to have the last word.
Right.
The last word of like a taunt.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that he points out is that like, you didn't even, like you were the third person in line that killed me. Like Apollo hit me first, then this other guy hit me, and now you're third. Like that's not impressive.
Yeah. Apollo killed me, and my human killer, Euphorbus, you were third to slaughter me. And then he like goes into prophecy mode before he dies. He's like, you surely have not long to live. Your death and overwhelming fate stand near you now. The hands of great Achilles will defeat you. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, though I will say it kind of is more of like a who's going to get the last word in. They keep going because then Hector does actually have the last word.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, who knows? Maybe I'll kill Achilles. But we know that that's not going to happen.
But it also, I think, bolsters, again, the dramatic tension of knowing that the Achilles-Hector fight is going to come and that they both will go in with such overconfidence.
Yeah.
I mean, it just fuels the like dramatic tension that has been building between the Achilles-Hector final fight, where they're both going to go into this with extreme overconfidence that like, I am fated to kill Hector from Achilles' perspective, and Hector's perspective is going to be, I'm fated to kill Achilles.
So just one final thing that I kind of want to point out about this book. It starts out with Patroclus wearing Achilles' armor, and when Patroclus goes into battle, like everybody being the Trojans are terrified that this is Achilles and he's back on the battlefield.
Right. So the plan works. Yeah.
It works. But there is a moment, and I can't really pinpoint when exactly it is, but there is a moment when people eventually realize that they're dealing with Patroclus and not Achilles. Because people start calling him Patroclus.
Right. And then especially by the end, when Apollo knocks off his armor, then it's like super clear. We get that full, that's interesting. We get the full scope. And I think it's also important, right, when the helmet gets knocked off, it's actually very clear that Hector picks it up and puts it on. Yes. So now Hector is wearing some of Achilles' armor.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to get more of this in following books, but it's very like ominous. It's because the helmet falls into the dust and blood, and it's like Achilles never lets the plume of his helmet touch the ground, and it's like fallen down into the dust, and Hector picks it up and assumes it. If you're reading along with us potentially, just keep in mind that now, in a sense, Hector is taking on Achilles' identity, which is quite interesting as well.
Yeah. And so speaking of future books, I will have an audiobook ready of book 17. If you would like to listen along with us or read along on your own. We'll be back here next week with an episode seeing how Achilles reacts to all of this.
Yes. Until then, happy reading.
Happy reading.